Hey Capsuleers, this is me, Anti-Elite, with another episode of Eve Basic, how to do the basic things in Eve. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the overview, and I really need you to bear with me because this is going to be a long episode, but once it's all over, it'll be very helpful to you and you'll have your overview set up for life. I'll show you at the end how to save your overview, and then you can import it on a completely new character. So, with that being said, let's get into this. Like I said, I really appreciate you just bearing with me as I go through this episode because it's going to be a long one. So up here at the top right hand side of your screen, you'll see your overview window. Now you see these four little horizontal lines next to where it says overview. I'm actually working with a completely new overview. I have had one set up and I deleted it just to make this tutorial video. So these four horizontal lines here next to where it says overview not saved, right above this little tab that says default, right click on that and go down to where it says open overview settings. I'm going to try and go nice and slow so you can keep up. Please feel free to pause the video and go over to Eve so that you can follow along because it'll make it a lot easier. Now you see you've got 6 tabs here: filters, appearance, columns, ships, overview tabs, and miscellaneous. The first thing that I'm actually going to talk about is the appearance window. We're not going to start with filters right away because those are things that you're going to set up individually a little bit later on. But right here, you see that you have 3 sub tabs in the appearance window. You've got color tag, background, and eWar. Now, for these 3 checkboxes, the only thing that you really need to click is apply to ships and drones only. But for these color tags, you can click and drag these and select them and deselect them however you want. Now I'm going to show you the order that's probably the best order to have them set up in, at least the best order that I've had good success with and haven't really had to mess around with. So what you want to do is you want to have the number 1 pilot is at war with your corporation right here. That's the red star there. The next thing that you want is pilot is at war with your militia. The next thing that you actually want to move pilot is in your fleet, pilot is in your fleet, pilot is in your corporation, alliance, and militia and ally. You want to move everything friendly beneath those beneath your war targets. So let's take right here, pilot is in your fleet. Let's find that. It's probably towards the middle. Where are you? Pilot is in your fleet. There it is right here. Move that. Just click it, hold it, and drag it, and move that underneath. Pilot is in your militia. Now under that, you're going to want alliance, then corporation. Then underneath that, you're going to want pilot is in your militia or allied with your militia. Then underneath that, you're going to want pilot is an ally. So let me see if I can find that. Now I'm sorry that it's taken me a few seconds to find all these things, but there is a lot of them, and they're all in tiny little font here. So I'm trying to find it. There is one that is pilot is an ally in your wars. There it is, right there at the bottom. I don't know why they made that so hard to find because it's kind of important. So move that up right underneath. Pilot is in your militia or allied to your militia. Underneath that, you're going to want to do excellent standing, which is this this blue plus. Underneath that, you're going to want good standing, and then criminal, suspect, and then underneath those, you're going to want terrible standing. Actually, let me move. Pilot has a security status below -5. Let's move that in between good standing and criminal and suspect. So then you have terrible standing, then bad standing, put that under suspect, or put that under terrible standing rather. Pilot has a security status below 0, that is not necessary to be checked. Same thing with bounty, same thing with kill rights. You can select that if you'd like. I'll select it and I'll move it underneath bad standing. Pilot has neutral standing, I'll move that underneath that. Agent is interactable, that's not a huge deal, so that's all the way at the bottom. Limited engagement on you, that's also all the way at the bottom. And no standing is a neutral, that isn't necessary to have checked. So that's pretty much how you want to set up your color tags. You want to have your war targets at the top, everything friendly to you underneath that, and then everything that is neutral or not in your corporation or anything like that underneath that. Now the reason that you want that is because this is a hierarchy. Anything that's towards the top is what it's going to display on the overview, with preference to anything below it. So in other words, if I've got somebody in my fleet that is a criminal, it's going to show that they're in my fleet and not that they're a criminal. And what this does is it helps you prevent any sort of friendly fire accidents, especially with your militia, because if you happen to be a militia pilot, and you will see some members of your militia will have security standings of less than -5. You're going to see some of them that are criminals. Well, maybe not so much in low sec, but you're definitely going to see some of them that are suspects. And so that's why you want to have militia, fleet, things like that, alliance, corp. You're going to want to have all of those all the way at the top. Now, obviously, these first two can't be at war with you if they're in your alliance or your corp. But that's why you have those all the way at the top, because if a war target joins your fleet, it's going to say that they're a war target and not in your fleet, so it's going to alert you to their presence. Now let's go over real quick to background. There isn't much that you're going to want to change on background. The only thing that I would suggest is clicking pilot has excellent standing, good standing, terrible standing, bad standing, and let's see. That's really about it. And then one thing you'll notice is that below -5 is red, criminal is red, and terrible standing is red. So you've got a lot of red. One thing I would recommend doing is taking security status below -5, making that blinky, and you can also make criminal blinky if you'd like. But that little red tag is going to have a minus in it, so that will that'll indicate that he has terrible standing. Now over in the eWar tab, let me go back to background real quick. I will make a note that you can drag these as well. So what you could do is actually do the same thing, do the same type of order. Put like let's say take your alliance or your militia rather, move that to the top, fleet. Move that above that, and then just go the same order that you had before. So then you do corporation, put alliance up there, and well, you get the picture. You just want to have everybody that's positive to you or something along those lines up in the top, so that way it prevents friendly fire accidents. But I'm not gonna rearrange these backgrounds because you're going to want to set them up the same way that you have your color tags set up. So I'll let you do that on your own if you want to pause the video and then restart it to catch back up. Good. Now the eWar tab, I would recommend leaving all of these checked. There's no need to change any of these, but that essentially shows you if the pilot is doing any of these things to you. Now the next thing I'm going to go over is really the meat of this tutorial. It's the filters window. Now for the filters window, you're going to make, the first thing that you're going to want to do is deselect all. You'll notice that everything in my overview just disappeared when I said deselect all. Now watch what happens when I say select all. You get everything. You get asteroid belts, planets, moons, customs offices, and that is a mess. That is a soup sandwich. So to say deselect all, now the first thing that we're going to set up is the PvP tab, because that is the most simple tab. And after each one of these type settings has been saved, then you're just going to add more on top of it. So basically you're going to do a little bit of this at a time until you have a full overview. So the first thing that we want to do is the PvP one. So you see this window here that says ship. Right click on that. And you can expand it if you'd like, but essentially it's just every type of ship in the game: assault ship, battlecruiser, battleship. I'm not going to go into all of them, but that's a lot of them. So you can just right click on the drop down box and say select all. That will select all of those ships, which is great because it saves you what is it, some 27 clicks, something like that, 37 clicks. Now the next thing that you want to do is go down here to where it says station, you can click that drop down box and click on station, because you're going to want to, if you're in PvP and you need a runaway, station can be a good place to go. I typically would not recommend that, but it can be. The next thing that I'm going to want you to click is go to NPC, click on Pirate, and Mission NPC. So that way, if there's combat on a asteroid belt or something along those lines, you can see that it's a pirate NPC doing damage to you and not the enemy, maybe something along those lines. Just have those in there for good measure, because sometimes it can be hard to tell what's attacking you, and if that's an NPC, you don't want to freak out and warp off or something like that if you're winning a fight. Now the next thing, charge. I would recommend selecting all of these. That just allows you to show, that just allows you to see bombs and things like that. It allows you to see if somebody's trying to scan you down and they've got a probe sitting right on top of you, or if somebody next to you is launching scanner probes, something along those lines. So we'll just say select all. The next thing that we want to do is go down to Celestial, or up to Celestial, and go down to Stargate. We're going to want to have that selected. Also, I'd recommend selecting Warp Gate, because Warp Gates are used to get into what are known as plexes, which is involved in faction warfare. And the other thing is beacons. Beacons will tell you on the overview where you can find, for example, faction warfare beacons. I believe it also shows Sinos, but please don't quote me on that. If you know if beacon shows Sinos, please just write it in the comments so that viewers can see. Now the next thing that you're going to want to go over, this is pretty much it for what you want to have selected for PvP, is go over to states, and I would recommend unclicking a few of these. You can leave most, if not all of these clicked, but one thing that I would recommend you unclick is, where is it? Pilot is in your alliance, pilot is in your corporation, pilot is in your fleet, and pilot is in your militia or allied to your militia. I would recommend unclicking all of those, and what that does is it prevents them from showing up on your overview. Now, you will still have these color tags in the background to tell you if they're friendly or not, but I would recommend just completely removing them from your overview by unchecking these 4 boxes, so that way you have 0 risk of friendly fire. Now, we'll re-click those when we set up our PvE tab, but for now, for the PvP tab, let's leave that turned off. That's pretty much all that you have to do for the PvP tab. Now, what you want to do before you start clicking on anything else is go up to the top next to where it says Overview Settings, right-click that, go down to where it says Save Current Type Selection As. Now, click on that, and for the label, type in PvP. Now say OK. Now that has just saved that preset as PvP, so now we're going to click some more things and check some more boxes to make our PvE setup. So in order to make a PvE setup, drop down Entity. There's a lot of things in Entity that you're going to want to click on. First of all of these dead space things, dead space Overseer, Overseer's Belongings, Sentry Structure, all of these faction warfare things, go ahead and click on all of these. I realize that's a lot of stuff to click, and you probably hear my mouse. That's because I just got a new microphone, but I don't have a boom for it yet, so it's pretty much right above my mouse. My desk space is at a premium, so please just bear with the clicking. I will get that fixed as soon as I can. Also, all of these mission things, Mission Amar Empire Battlecruiser, Mission Concord Ship, all of these, click all of these. Like I said, it's going to be a lot of clicking. In fact, let's just right-click Entity, say Select All. Alright, now let's scroll back up, unclick Billboard, Capture Point, Convoy, Convoy Drone. Then we'll scroll down a little bit, Destructible Sentry Gun, that's fine. Unclick Destructible Agents in Space. Keep scrolling, keep scrolling. Unclick Infrastructure Hub, a Large Collidable Ship, Large Collidable Structure. Actually, keep Structure up, because there are some missions that require you to structure things. Don't know what an LCO drone is? Go ahead and unclick that. Keep scrolling, there's a lot of stuff. You're going to want to keep Pirate Drone clicked, Protective Sentry Gun clicked, Rogue Drone, Sentry Gun. I'd recommend unclicking Sentry Gun. Those are the NPC Sentry Guns that are on gates and things like that. Spawn Containers. Turn off Spawn Containers. Those are going to go in a different overview, and I'll show you which. Tutorial Drone, keep that on. Also, you should already have all the ships clicked, and the other things for PvE are go to states. You can re-click these pilot is in your alliance, corp, fleet, and militia, so that way if you're in a PvE scenario and you need to do, let's say, remote armor repairing, then you can lock on to your friendly ships and heal them up as is needed. Now then, we're going to set up another overview, but don't forget, before you do that, right click, then save current type selection as, again, type in PvE. Alright, so you've typed in PvE, you saved it. Now let's make your loot window. Now for the loot window, all you really need to do is add to your PvE window Celestial, then go down to cargo container and check that, and then scroll down to Rex and check that. Alright, and that's all you have to do for the loot window. Now the reason that I have a different loot window as a PvE window is because the PvE window can get very crowded with Rex and loot boxes and things like that, especially when you're doing level 4s. So I like to have a different loot window to keep me from getting confused and from having way too much stuff on the overview. Now once you're done with the mission, or once you're nearing the end of the mission, if you want to loot, that's fine. You can go over to loot, and the way that it's set up, all the mission pirates and all the mission NPCs and everything will still be on your overview, and you'll be able to target them and shoot them as normal, only now you have Rex and cargo containers. Now the next thing that I want to set up is I want to set up a drones one. Now a drones overview is very helpful, especially in PvP, because there tends to be a lot of things going on the overview, and especially in something like a small gang or a fleet. It can get very crowded with drones, but you want to be able to see drones, because 1v1, if somebody pops drones on you, then it's wonderful to be able to just swap over to a different tab and target all of his drones right back. So let's collapse the Celestial window, say deselect all, and you see this little drop down that says drone. Go ahead and click on all of those. Now it's up to you whether or not you want to unclick mining drone. I'm just going to leave it on for now. And that's really all that you need to do to set up your drones. So let me just go ahead, right click this, save current type selection as drones. Alright. Now the next thing that you want to do, at least I like to do this for my 5th tab, because you're allowed to have 5 tabs, and I'll go over tabs in a second. I like to just select all. I like to have something that shows me absolutely everything, and that is just a habit of mine, and it also acts as kind of a safety net, because if you forget, let's say, to click something that I've talked about, or if something is attacking you and you can't see it in your overview, then it's really easy just to go over to all, have it sorted by distance, and see what's next to you attacking you. So let me just save this as all. Okay. Now the next thing that I want to talk to you about, we have all 5 of our tabs set up, and hopefully I'll be able to find some NPCs and some other pilots to demonstrate how this overview works. But the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is columns. Now columns, you can actually move these in a hierarchical fashion, just like you moved around your appearance, your color tags, and your backgrounds. You can move these around just like you did with those. So if you'll notice, in the current overview, this is what an icon is. It's these little triangles, the warp gates, the circles for stars and planets. This is distance. The next column over, that is your distance from the target. Name, that is the name of what it is, and type. Now what I like to do is actually just click icon, distance, name, and type. And I also like to click tag. That's helpful in fleets, and if you'll notice on my overview, let me just expand this, you see tag. Now what would you do if what would the overview do if you move tag all the way to the top? Now look, tag is all the way to the left. So if you want a lot of information on your overview, you can actually just click as many of these as you want, move them around at your leisure, and they will show up here. I can actually click all of these, and there's just way too much stuff on your overview. So I would actually not recommend having that much stuff clicked on this. I'd say at a minimum though, you'd want icon, distance, name, type, and tag. Now, other things that may be helpful, especially if you use gunnery, and especially if you're doing PvP, is to have radial velocity and angular velocity. Actually, I think just angular velocity is really the most important one, um, because that has to do with your gun's tracking. Now, the higher the angular velocity is on your enemy when you're using gunnery, is the higher the angular velocity, it has an effect on your tracking, and it keeps your guns from hitting them. And so that may be something that you'd want on your overview if you were a PvP pilot using some sort of projectile weapon, whether it's hybrids, projectiles, or lasers. The next tab over is ships. Now this is also, you can also do this in a hierarchical view. I just tend to leave it default for this because it really shows you what you need to know. It shows you their name, what corp they're in, what alliance they're in, and what ship type they're in. And you can move that around. You can change these little brackets next to it, change how it looks. You can also hide corp ticker if pilot is an alliance. I do like to leave that unchecked because I like to see what corp they're in as well as alliance. But if you're in, say, sovereign nullsec, then you know that everybody in your alliance should be friendly to you, so you can just hide the corp as long as you know what alliance they're in. Now this shows how it's going to display, and you can change that. You can have pilot and then corp, pilot then corp alliance, or corp pilot alliance. You can set that up however you'd like. The next one I want to talk about is, I'm actually going to talk about miscellaneous first before we load up our overview tabs and get them all sorted out, so that way you know what this last window is before we wrap up the episode and finish our overview. Now at the top, you see this checkbox that says Move Entities with Broadcasts to Top. I would recommend having that clicked, because if you're in a fleet scenario in something along the lines of a level 4 or 5 mission, or if you're in an incursion, your fleet commander will broadcast certain targets to hit, and those broadcasts will be moved immediately to the top of your overview regardless of range, and that helps you to know exactly which target to primary. Now there's a button underneath it that says Reset All Overview Settings, and that actually takes you back to default. That is useful if you are either making EVE tutorials like I am, or if you mess something up so badly with your overview and you don't know how to fix it that you just need to reset everything and start all over. Now I did click this button before I made this tutorial. That is why when I was saving some of my overviews the same names came up, because I'm essentially setting up the overview that I had before. Now, brackets and targets, those aren't terribly important. You can leave all of those clicked. So let's go back to overview tabs and finish setting up our overview. For the first tab, you're going to want to name it PvP. Second tab, PvE. Third tab, loot. Your fourth tab is going to be drones. Actually, you know what? Let's switch drones and loot. Let's make this one drones and this one loot. And then the last tab, all. Now, overview profile is the next thing. That loads up what you just saved. So click on that and you can do PvP. That'll load up your PvP window. For PvE, click down on PvE. Same thing with drones, same thing with loot, and same thing with all. Now for the bracket profile, for PvP, you can just leave PvP. Same thing with PvE. Same thing with drones. Same thing with loot. And same thing with all. Now before I do anything else, let me just discuss what a bracket is. You may be able to see this little circle with the arrow pointing into it, which you will definitely know as a Stargate. That is what a bracket is. A bracket is that little icon in your HUD on your screen that tells you where a thing is. Now it's helpful to have a lot of brackets up on your PvP window, because certain enemies will warp off, and you can actually watch which direction they warped and make a judgment call on whether they warped to a Stargate, a station, an asteroid belt, or a planet, some sort of celestial. So sometimes on my PvP window I do run with all. Sometimes I run with just a blank one. But the other good good thing about brackets is, like, if you're in a big fleet and there are a lot of ships, then you can actually hide all of your brackets, so that way all you see is ships in your overview, and you don't have to deal with seeing just a massive blob of purple or something along those lines. So I'll just leave this on PvP for now, and here's where your overview is made. This button down here, apply. There you go. So now you'll see that I have a PvP, I have a PvE, drones, loot, and all. Now let me try to go to an asteroid belt, and hopefully I'll get lucky with whatever asteroid belt I choose. Hopefully there will be a NPC there so that I can show you the difference between some of these overview brackets. Now, if I could go into a mission, that would probably be a lot more helpful, but I don't currently have one open, and I'm doing live commentary in this video, so I don't want to bore you guys to tears while I fly back to a station, pick up a mission, and go over there and do the mission. So let me just see if this asteroid belt has any rats in it, and if it doesn't, I'll conclude the video. And if it does, then I will demonstrate how the overview is different. This is a long warp. Okay, so no dice there, that's fine. I do assure you that this overview will work, and it is very effective. There may be some small minor tweaks that you may need to make, especially depending on whether or not you, depending on what profession you are. If you're a mission runner, the PvE tab should be more than good enough. However, if you're a miner, there may be something else you want to do, and I guess it actually works out that I came into this asteroid belt. So let me right click, go back to open overview settings, let me go back to filters, deselect all, asteroids, select all. There are all those asteroid belts. Now that may be something that you want to save as, save current type selection as, say, mining. Now you can go to your mining overview tab by going to overview tab. Let's say instead of all, let's say mining. For the overview profile, let's go down to where it says mining. Bracket profile, we'll just leave it as all, say apply, and there you go. Now if you go to, well, it actually just made my PvP tab mining, so I'd have to load load overview profile PvP, and that is a very quick way to load overview profiles. You can just right click on the tab, say load overview profile, and choose which one you want. Mining over here, now you see I've got all of these rocks as well as their distances, what kind they are. You can sort them by all different ways with the columns. You can sort them by type, you can sort them by name, which in the case of an asteroid would also be its type, and you can sort them by distance. So that's pretty much all there is to setting up your overview. You know the basics now, which is obviously the point of this series. So now you can set up your overview and customize it as you like. I really appreciate your viewership. Please remember to rate and subscribe. I'll see you next time. This is Anti-Elite, signing off.